Is this the face of a tired puppy mama? Yes, it is. Wah! Hey fabulous fiber friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Karen and I am your host. This is the face of a tired puppy mama. I know I should not compare myself to, I shouldn't complain about being tired house training this little puppy, this little tyke, because those of you who raise little infants have a far tougher job. But this little guy, trying to get him housebroken has been a bit of a challenge, and I've been losing sleep. And so I'm tired, but I missed you guys and I wanted to record. So Boyland is doing well. I started an Instagram account for him. Do you want some followers? He's a pleasure, but the house training isn't going as smoothly as it did with 6 other dogs I have raised using the same training techniques. So I've threatened to get rid of him. Of course I won't, but I've threatened. But he's mostly a good boy and he has great play dates. Or play date. Some neighbors they rescued a pup about 4 months ago. And I think their puppy now is 5 or 6 months old, 6 months old maybe, a couple months older than Boyland, and they play wonderfully together. And the twins of this family, there are 2 8-year-old girls, love coming over and play with Boyland. And so they bring over their little puppy and everybody gets to play. And it's a lot of fun. See, I need my energy. Maybe I need a vitamin B pill. Before we get started, I would just like to say, my YouTube channel is mostly for fun. I do this for the fun of it, to share works in progress, to share finished objects, to share yarn, visits to yarn stores or yarn events. I will cover those things and bring those to you for those that maybe don't live in the area and just enjoy seeing the different fiber events that are going on around the country. I will offer any hints or tips that I have found in my own knitting, and I got a comment from someone that they were disappointed. I think they expected a tutorial for one design. I'm not the designer of the pattern. I do not feel it is my place to do a tutorial on someone else's work, their design. I can give a tip of things that I might do at the end of that pattern, but I cannot. I feel it's wrong of me to try to give a tutorial for someone else's design work. I think that is, you really need to seek out the designer and Ravelry, and you will find all the information on techniques and help and questions, and other people probably have the same questions. And go onto Ravelry and you'll find threads under groups, and sometimes they're even listed by the pattern name. And people are making it, and maybe they had a question on something or something wasn't quite clear, which is very common when we are new knitters and crocheters and fiber spinners and dyers and all of that. We don't know everything right away, so we do need help, and the best place to get the help is Ravelry and or from the designers themselves. That said, my channel is just, I'm here to have fun, show you guys what I'm doing, hang out, chat, and because I really enjoy recording and editing. Anyway, so I'm just here to hang out and have a good time, and hopefully you are too. Oh my God. You guys, listen to this. Misogyny is still out there. My car there's been some problems with my car. So I thought, well, I'll take it to the dealership to have the repairs done. But before I check in, maybe I'll look at, getting a new car, leasing a new car. I'm not sure. I own my car. I really don't want to have car payments. And yet, I need to put a little bit away every month, because as the older my car gets, the less it's worth. So when I trade in, I'm going to need money and blah, 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 blah. So I go in for a test drive. I'll even spare you. The first day, the salesperson was just rather rude. Oh, I'll be right with you. I'm going to help you. Oh, my client just came in. Let me get help. I sat there 15 minutes, I got up and I left, and he's chasing after me, and he says, oh, wait, you know, and I said, no, I'm here 15 minutes and you're going to help me, and you leave. So forget it. So I leave. So the next day I go in because I had an appointment for my car to get serviced. And I said, look, I'm going to give you one more chance. I thought maybe because of his, you know, rudeness the day before, I might have a little leverage. So we go on a test drive, and then we get back, and he says to me, listen to this. He says to me, do you want to come in tomorrow with your husband to negotiate a deal? I looked at him. I said, excuse me? I do not need my husband to negotiate a deal on my behalf. I'm quite capable of doing that on my own. He said, oh. And then, so he prints out the paperwork and all of the features of the vehicle and the price and this and that. And he says, well, here's what we can do for you. And I looked at the paper and I said, you got to be kidding me, right? And he goes and gets the manager and he says, well, here's what we'll give you for your car. And I said, you're joking, right? That's all we can do for you. They wouldn't even negotiate with me. I couldn't believe it. I don't know if because I'm a woman, I was just like outraged. So the manager walks away. The sales guy says to me, well, you know, you're spending all this money on having your car repaired, and you know you could have a new car, either a lease or a purchase or blah, blah. And I looked at him and he's going on and on, blah, 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 blah. And I said, hey, excuse me. I said, will you please stop insulting me? I said, you think I don't know this? This is why I'm weighing everything out. You know, oh, I was just so mad. So I leave. The next day, the salesman calls me. Oh, hi, Karen, so-and-so from the, you know, X, Y, and Z dealership. And I said, why are you calling me? He says, what do you mean? I said, after yesterday, I think we concluded all of our business. He said, I don't know what, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, we're done. And I said, thank you, click. He calls me the following day, and I just blocked his number. Can you believe that? But the point was, they were unwilling. First of all, they thought I needed my husband. Hello, how many women have their own buying power nowadays? Women run businesses. Women haven't been president yet. We have to work on that. But at least in this country, women haven't been, right? We need some female, we need women in the presidency. But can you believe that guy? It was just crazy. Anyway, that's my rant for today. So let's get started with knitting. Here it is. Okay, here is a finished object. I have to shoot a little music video for you guys and for me. I like doing it. It's fun. Let me get up close. I'll show you my neckline. I had little boo-boos here. Pay no attention. And I think, so here it is. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's so hot here. I swear, with the polar caps melting, I think I could live up in the North Pole, because I run hot. I've lived in Southern California over 30 years and I'm still not used to the heat. And I also have this horrible problem. You know, when I was a kid, my brothers called me Swamp Monster. Don't feel bad for me. And I do. I have, I guess, hypohidrosis on my hands and my feet. The palms of my hands and feet sweat so badly. And it's a problem because I can't knit because I get so wet. I put baby powder on, it's gone in 3 seconds. And even now I'm just dying. And my body isn't so hot, but my hands and my feet. Isn't that where dogs sweat out of their hands and their paws? I think I was born in the year of the dog, according to Chinese calendar year, or however that works. And maybe that's why I sweat out of my hands and my feet. Oh my gosh. So let me tell you about this finished object. Many of you know that I just kind of freestyle knit a lot of these sweaters. What I like to do is just show off the yarn, so I don't go in for any big fancy design, although sometimes I do put a little lace work in, as you might recall. And I keep all my notes, right, on paper. I write my yarn, the needle size I use, my cast on, and so every time I make another one of these, and even if I make a tiny variation, I have something to start with, so I do not need to do a gauge swatch, because usually I'm using mohair mixed with either a lace or fingering weight yarn. And if I use lace weight, I might change the stitch, using between lace and fingering, I might change the stitch count by, 2 or 4 stitches if I want the same width and length and everything. But otherwise I kind of go with it's pretty consistent. I can, cast on X number of stitches, and within an inch, this will fit the same as the previous sweaters I've made. So, this particular sweater I used, and I don't have the label. I mean, I do, but it's on a different colorway, but I'll just show you the label. It is the Lang Millicolori, the baby yarn, fingering weight yarn. This is a super fine, super wash merino. It is not this colorway. It is this colorway, and I will put all the details below. So there's teal, brown, different green, different shades of green, as you can see in the sweater. And then I mixed it with a Rowan. This is called Peacock, the colorway Peacock. This is a Rowan Kid Silk Haze. And I mixed those together. And I mixed those together because I thought the colors were kind of cool together, and it would give me, it's still in my color wheel, right? I like my teals, my greenish blues, my bluish greens, anything in the teal family, aqua, peacock, love those colors. And as I've talked about before, because of my complexion, those colors, cool colors, look better on me. Oh, speaking of which, you guys, on Fruity Knitting, I think the last episode it was, Andrea talked about coloring and how you know which colors are better, that are better suited to your complexion. Many of you know this. I have mentioned it before too, that I am definitely a cool color person, so cool colors look better on me. And Andrea talked about it a little in depth, and like Andrea, I am not a color theorist or anything like that. There is a book, however, I think it was from the 1980s, and I may have mentioned this to you guys before. It is called What Color Is Your Palette, I think is the title of the book. And they break down the different, there was a trend back in the 80s. There were cosmetic companies that would go, one was called Prescriptives, and they would have winter, spring, summer, fall. So they broke all the different complexions, and it doesn't matter, ladies and gents, if you are Caucasian or black skin or brown skin or yellow skin, it doesn't matter what your race, every one of us we're either cool or warm complected. And so it talks about that in this book, and you can look at your undertones to decide if you're cool or warm, and then you break it down even further between winter and summer. Like winter and summer are both cool colors. And winter, if memory serves, can wear, you can wear the same shades, well, not quite shades, right? Your colors are more or less the same, but summer are a little bit softer of the winter colors. So winter colors are brighter, clearer, cleaner in color, and the summer colors are just a slightly softer version of those same winter colors. But that doesn't mean pastel, because that would be more falling into the spring and autumn colors, which are warm colors. So you have a lot of your golds, your rusts, your reds, your browns, a lot of beiges, yellow, anyway, you guys can look all that up. And there is a French woman, although she's living in Germany, working in Germany, Justine Leconte, I think. She actually is a fashion designer. I will link her below. She talks about finding your color, whether you're cool or warm, and deciding which colors look best on you. Most of you probably already know this and maybe haven't thought too much more than, oh, I know that color looks better on me. And a lot of people will say, I've heard this before, and I used to think this, oh, I can't wear green. Well, that's not true. I can wear green. It's the shade or hue of green. I get, see, I'm not a color theorist, so I might have the terms wrong, but it depends on the shade of green. I've heard people say, oh, I hate blue, and then they pick out the blues they like. Well, they're dusty blues, but they like this blue. So they don't dislike blue, they just dislike certain shades of blue, or hue, certain, I guess it would be shades, certain shades of blue. Now for me too, baby blue and pale blues, unless it's an icy blue, ice blue would be a cool color, but some of the more powdery blues, those are more warmer colors slightly, and so they don't look as good on me. But like teal, the peacocks, those colors, they do look good on me. So any of the cool colors, and I'm babbling on, but just so you guys know, that's why I wear a lot of blue and green and peacock. And even fuchsias and pinks, and it can't be like baby pink. For some reason that'll drown me out a little bit, but I can wear the brighter pinks and fuchsias, which I'm drawn to as well. So that's enough of that. I'm not a color theorist, but it's very interesting. And so if you are into that, you might want to check out Justine. I'll link her below, and she did it many months ago, a whole thing on color theory and finding the color palette that works best with your skin tone. And it also goes into hair and eye color, which matters. And I think one thing that, like, I know a woman who thinks she's what's called a winter, a cool color, and her coloring is not a winter. She claims that someone did her colors for her back in the 80s or early 90s. And I'm looking at her thinking, you're not a winter, because your hair is, you're blonde, and like 99.9% of winters are not blonde. They're not, because their coloring is different. So anyway, well, neither here nor there. So back to this sweater. So I used that, and this is all in pieces, of course, and I know this is really bad. Designers will think this is terrible of me. I do kind of guesswork, and based on previous versions I've made of this sweater, it's kind of a set-in sleeve, but not quite. And it would be more, except I should have brought in my neckline a little tighter, and then this would be a proper set-in sleeve. But because I was afraid my neckline would be too tight and narrow, I guess I went a little loosey-goosey on the neckline, and so my sleeves sit a little off the shoulder when they should be, you know, fitting more closely like a proper set-in sleeve. But it's close enough, and I'm okay with that. And maybe if I wear like a t-shirt underneath it, that'll take up some space, and it'll help hold that up where it belongs. So that is my finished object for this week. Okay, just to reiterate, once I have completed my garments and I've sewn them up, I will, which you guys already know, I will always do a slip stitch crochet around all my hems, and I'm just going to show you. See there? Right, I just do the little slip stitch crochet, and around the bottom, the hemline. Actually, if I hold it up, you can kind of see. Let's see if I can see at the bottom. I'm going to come closer. It just gives it a very clean edge. Or at least that's what I think. You know, the edging it's very clean looking. And since I did a 3x3 ribbing here, when you do a tight ribbing, it's a little more challenging, but on a 3x3 ribbing, and I keep this slip stitch crochet loose enough that it doesn't seem to interfere with the ribbing whatsoever. And a 3x3 ribbing isn't as spongy, squishy, it doesn't come in as much, as, let's say, a 1x1 ribbing, of course, right? Where it's really tight ribbing. And I prefer that because I just like the look of it better for myself. What else? So when you're knitting on your own and you're not a designer, you make little mistakes sometimes. So what I had done with this one, I wanted a V-neck. My others were just like crew necks or round necks, wider than crew, but that kind of shape. So this one, I think I cast on 77 stitches, and I used maybe an 8 or 9 needle for the 3x3 ribbing, and then I switched to the 9 or 10, I forget, it's on my Ravelry page. Then I went up 1 needle size only, and then continued in the stockinette. And I cast on an odd number of stitches because for the neckline, I wanted that V-neck, so I wanted to put, once I separated, I wanted an odd stitch in the center so that I had an even number of stitches on each side, so I could take that 1 stitch in the center for the center of the V-neck. But what I did is, I've been playing with my V-necks. They're not always 100%, and so this time, I actually, instead of just 1 stitch, I took 3 of the center stitches and put those on a holder until I was ready to work the neckline. And it's okay. It doesn't come to quite the peak I wanted, and part of that may be because I used the larger needle size to pick up my stitches around the neckline and then decreased my needle sizes as I with every couple rows, so that the neckline would be drawn in. Instead of decreasing stitches, I just decrease the needle size, and that brings in the neckline. And so I have a bit of a gappy gap. You can see a little bit here. See, it's a little loosey-goosey here. I can live with it. And as I think what I mentioned earlier about the set-in sleeve, I should have, when I tried it on, in my head I'm thinking, okay, I need the neckline, I need to give a little tension here and there so that the neckline pulls in slightly, so the whole neckline, right? So that my set-in sleeves are actually set-in sleeves. And that didn't quite work out, so they do come off the shoulder just a tiny bit. Again, not the end of the world. But overall, I'm happy with the look of the garment. And I think if you're kind of a new knitter, new sweater knitter, and you've made a sweater before, figure out, and you're using a similar yarn, just use that number of stitches to make a front and a back and sleeves. And it will help you learn the construction of a garment. And you'll make mistakes probably. I did, I still do, but I learn from them. And of course it also helps to, look at design books, look at patterns, read them. And some people have suggested, some designers, doggies, the UPS man is in the neighborhood. Lucita! Some designers say that if you understand sewing, it really helps with sweater construction. And I think I'm not a big sewist. I like to sew, but I'm not very good at it. And it's not as easy to rip back. If you make a mistake, you've ruined your fabric. And I'm not skilled enough to figure out ways around that. And so as much as I would love to sew more garments, it's practice makes perfect. I just need to do more sewing. But, so sweater construction. So let me see, what else? What else can I tell you? And I do, my shoulders, I do not do 3 needle bind off. I do the mattress stitch. I always use the mattress stitch. You know what's interesting to me is some people use the back stitch, and I've tried it only once, and I wasn't able to do it consistently, picking up, where you do a stitch and then you back, right, to back stitch. And I couldn't get the hang of it. But because I always add 2 edge stitches, 1 to each end, because I knit, like this is knit flat. You can only do it with knit flat, of course. So I add like I told you, I cast on 77 stitches here. So the first stitch and the very last stitch are my edge stitches. So I will always slip as if to purl the first stitch. This is in stockinette, so I'll knit across, and the very last stitch I will knit. Then when I turn it to do the purl side, I will slip as if to purl that very first stitch. I will purl back and then knit the very last stitch. And I know some people actually slip as if to knit. And for me, there's a little bump. There's something that it works, but there's a bump there that kind of bothers me. So I always slip as if to purl instead. Or you can knit the first stitch and knit the last stitch, but then it's like a garter, and then you have that little bump again. And I don't know what it is about that little bump, but it makes me crazy. So I just do it, slip the first stitch as if to purl, knit the last stitch on both sides, so on the right side row and the wrong side row. And then it's very easy to see those edge stitches for picking up and sewing them together, and it makes the mattress stitch much easier than trying to go in between the ladders. I used to do that before I knew about edge stitching when I first started knitting years ago, and I would try to go in between the ladders, and I didn't really understand that, and trying to, especially if you had waist shaping, and now, oh my gosh, and which stitches do I go in between to get the ladder, and oh my god, it was such a mess. So when I learned about edge stitches, that was so useful. And now, even if I do waist shaping, I do my edge stitch, and usually one stitch I'll work, and then I'll do my waist shaping, like on the third and fourth stitch. So if you're, let's say you're doing knit two together. So I'll slip as if to purl, slip as if to purl, I'll knit a stitch, and then I'll work, a knit two together. That's my shaping, let's say, if you're doing waist shaping, and then knit across, and then when you get to 4 stitches remaining, I will SSK, right, slip, slips, knit, the first 2 of the last 4 stitches, and then the third stitch of the last 4 I will work a knit stitch, and the last one a knit stitch. And that way you start, and so that's where I put my shaping stitches. I always go in a couple stitches, but not too far. I do it like the third and fourth stitch in. And what else can I say? So that's about it, really. I'm getting better at remembering this. I didn't know how to do at all when I first did a sweater, and my ribbing was so bad. It was all out of whack and out of alignment. Now I know to count my stitches on either side. So from the shoulder down, right, I count my stitches, so I make sure I have the same number of stitches, so that from your center, right, from your center, you'll have your center decrease. It's a center double decrease, but then on either side you'll have, these will all be purl, these will be knit stitches, then purl stitches, then knit stitches, so that it mirrors each other instead of it being lopsided, which when I first started, my necklines were so lopsided. V-necks were always lopsided. I'd have purl stitches on one side with the center double decrease. I'd have knit stitches on the other side because I had no clue what I was doing. So I finally perfected that. Not that my necklines are 100% perfect yet, but they are much better than they used to be. So if you want to challenge yourself and just make a garment without a pattern, and this is easy, it's all stockinette. I know it seems boring to do this a lot. For some people, stockinette is just so boring, but you're using huge needles, it goes quickly. Actually, it's a great gift if you're looking to make something for someone that lives in a cooler climate and likes mohair, and mix it with lace or fingering weight yarn, and you can probably bang one of these out in a week or 2, depending on your amount of time that you have to knit, but they are super easy. And I always wash my garments. This was actually, I think, who talked about this recently on their podcast about oh, maybe it was Dana with Jelly Bean. She may have talked about the importance of blocking, which I never understand why people, knitters, crocheters, don't block their, and I know most do, but I do, some people don't block their garments, and I'm never sure why. Even hats, I will always wash and block, and I don't mean block, hard block. I will wash it and either shape it or lay it out flat, because mostly I don't hard block anything with wires. And if my hard blocking is, I will pull it and stretch it out and lay it out, and as it's drying, I'll come back every, half an hour or so and stretch it. But after I wash it, I always wash everything, because I drop the yarn on the floor. The dogs sometimes get, they'll sniff around the yarn and there's dog drool or who knows what. My hair gets caught up in the yarn. Maybe I'm snacking on something, and so my fingers might be a little, have remnants of food oil or something on them. And so I always wash everything. Plus, it really makes the stitches open up and improves the look of your garment or hat or scarf or shawl. So I really encourage you, if you're not a blocker or a washer, that you consider doing it, because it'll make a difference in the look of your garment. And as Dana mentioned, also sizing, because when you're done, your knitting is a little tight or crunched, it's a little and so if you block it, even if you don't do it with blocking pins, you just lay it out nicely, lay it flat to dry, and you sort of shape it as you lay it out, you shape it. It'll make a huge difference, or it can make a huge difference in the final sizing of your garment, especially with a sweater. If you feel like, oh, it's a little tight, and I've done that where I think, oh gosh, I was a little tight under the arms, and so I really try to, I'll stretch that out, because I might need an extra half an inch, it's just a little snug under the arms. And so washing and blocking really helps in those areas. So as Dana says, I really encourage you guys, if you don't think about doing it. I think it'll give you a new perspective on your knitting. You might think, my gosh, that looks so, wow, that looks great. And, and yarn blossoms and blooms and really opens up. And I have mohair, I have mohair, I have mohair, I have mohair, I have mohair. So that really helps it. So do consider always washing and either laying flat, laying it out, blocking, smooth blocking, hard blocking, whatever you need to do to help your garments, to help achieve the right size and dimensions of your garments. And moving on, works in progress. I'm finally getting around to the Soldotna crop, and let me tell you, there's so many beautiful Soldotna crops out there. Oh my God, they're so pretty. And I noticed, one thing I noticed in some of the pictures before they're blocked, there's kind of a funnel neck thing. There was something that really bothered me, and I bought the pattern. Even though it bothered me, there was something about here that bothered me. The funneling of the neckline, and yet when people wore it, I didn't see that issue. But there were a couple of people on Instagram that, one in particular I think, that tore out, they cut out the neck. They didn't like how the neckline was laying on them. They cut it out and redid it. So mine is a little funnely looking, as you can see. And I'm hoping that will block out. That is a little bit of a concern. Someone told me that it would block out. They assured me, yes, it'll block out, no problem. Also, because I live in SoCal, I'm using DK weight yarn, I'm using Skein cocaine, and this was actually a kit by Skein cocaine. And in her Instagram feed, she had featured this, and the picture was so beautiful. And these aren't typically the colors I'm drawing. I mean, I love the purples, and the colors are all gorgeous. I'm not sure how they're going to look on my skin tone, I would say they're a bit muted for me. This probably would look better on a winter, I'm sorry, on someone who can wear warmer colors. But I'm going to see if I can play it off. Maybe just changing my makeup or something. Because I think with the purple close to my face, it might be okay. But it's beautiful, really cool colors. I don't mean cool as in warm and cool. I mean cool as in hipster. So when I was staring at this pattern for a long time and thinking, okay, how am I going to work with that neckline? So I'm making the extra small, but I went up a needle size, actually 2 needle sizes. I started 1 needle size up for the neck, hoping that so that the neckline would sit lower, right? It would be more, not boat neck, but just a wider neckline. And then I gradually increased, and then I did my neck shaping, and then when I started the color work, I went up to a size 7 needle, which I know is pretty loose. And as I look at the color work, and I'll show you up close in a second, it is a bit loose, and I'm hoping that when I block it, it will blossom. But I did want the garment, the fabric to be a little bit loose, only because of our climate here, so that I can get more use out of it. I thought if my gauge was looser, more air would flow through. So let me show you. Let me show you here. So you can see, maybe, I don't know if you can sort of tell, my gauge is a little looser, and at times you can almost kind of see through, right? Can you see that? You can kind of see through a little bit. I'm hoping that isn't a huge problem for the sizing. I knew, and that's also why I made the extra small. The extra small, also because even though Caitlin Hunter tends to make a lot of positive ease, this garment, at least from all the finished objects that I looked at, looked to be more fitted. I didn't want it quite so fitted. I wanted it a little more loosey-goosey. And the extra small I thought would be it would probably fit, but it would be very fitted. Didn't want that, but I made the extra small knowing I was going up needle sizes. So we'll see how that works out. There has been a lot of discussion about color dominance in colorwork knitting. So I did a little experiment, because one section here, right, you've got, right, the two colors working side by side, and there goes my yarn. I'll let it fall. And I noticed that the green was background, and the green was carried in my right hand, which is I'm a continental knitter, so I carry my working yarn in my left hand. So I carry my secondary color, usually I'll carry it in my right hand. And it seems to me that color dominance in that case, and maybe I'm wrong, that the green receded into the background because that was my weaker knitting hand, and I don't know if that's true. Because what I did for this other section, which I don't think there's color dominance. Let me show you this other section. So this section here with the arrows, right, where the purple and green, the pale purple and the green arrow, sort of like arrowhead. That section, it was a little more tedious, but I got into a rhythm, and I used my left hand, and I cannot carry two colors on my left hand. I'm not skilled at that. So I kept dropping one and picking up the other, and just knit continental, and just dropping one color, picking up the other, dropping it, picking up the first one. And I don't see color dominance there. Not that I can tell. Can you tell? I don't think what I showed you, right? Those little arrows. It's very consistent, the colors. So now I knew that because I'm repeating, I had to use the technique where I use both continental and English for a repeat, because I had done it the first time I made the repeat. So I'm wondering if color dominance really has to do more with your stronger versus your weaker knitting hand, so that if you're really skilled at both, if you can do both equally, or it must have to do with the tension, because I think my tension must be different on each hand, right? Depending if I'm doing continental or English style. And maybe it just takes practice. Maybe I just need to be stronger at English, and or is that the way it goes? Because I've heard many people talk about, you know, if you want your dominant color, knit with X hand, you know, carry that particular yarn in this particular hand. But I'm wondering, is that your stronger knitting hand, you know, and that's why it's color dominant? Maybe someone knows, or maybe I'm all washed out. Maybe I have no clue what I'm talking about, which wouldn't be the first time. So this is going to be a Rhinebeck sweater, I hope, if it fits. And if it doesn't, maybe I'll just wear something underneath it and make it fit so that I can twin with Skein Cocaine, since we'll have the same color palette. As I sometimes do, I would like to highlight artists that are non-fiber related, but artists all the same. A friend is an artist. She draws and paints, and she has greeting cards that she has been selling in Ojai, California, outside of Los Angeles. Actually, it's closer to Santa Barbara, for years. And she just came out with a mermaid calendar, and I love mermaids, and I think a lot of you do too. So I wanted to share that with you. The artist's name is Sharon Russell, and this is the Mermaid's Calendar 2020. And I'll just give you a brief, I'll show you a few of the pictures. There's the cover and the details. And let me show you, I mean, they're all so beautiful. We've got, and every month there is a title of the mermaid, and then a little, what would you call it? Not a description, but, well, like in this case, Blue Lagoon says, I have dreamt I am a mermaid, or am I a mermaid dreaming I am me? So it has all these little captions, which are really quite lovely. Here is January. I'll just show you a couple of them. But if you'd like them, so I purchased one of these because I want to support artisans. Isn't that cool? It's like Ganesh. So that's very cool. Let's see, one more. Let me see. That one's similar to the front. And so every month there is, like, Circle of Life is May. June is called Play. You have a mermaid playing with a dolphin. Oceanic Mother is July. Seahorse Love. Oh, here's August. Since we are today is the last day of August. This is the last one I will show you, August. And that is that mermaid with her seahorse. And I just thought these were so lovely, and I think it's wonderful that we as a community all celebrate and support fellow artisans, even those artisans who are not in the fiber community. So I will put all the information below. Hope you guys are enjoying. In the States here, we are having a long 3-day weekend. I'm recording this on Friday. I will get it up sometime this weekend. So have a lovely Labor Day weekend. It's a long weekend here. School has started back for some of the kids. I know some of the kids will start back next week. I know some of you are parents, and you're glad to have the kids back at school, so you have a little quiet time to knit during the day when they're away. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.